Minds on Muscle community, welcome to the Fitness Pro Mentors interview series. If you want to hear some amazing interviews from amazing fitness professionals all over the world, please join our Fitness Pro Mentors private Facebook group. But today, let's make it rain. Hello everyone, welcome to today's live stream. I'm super excited to have in the group one of my good friends, mentors, and someone that I've looked up to for over 10 years, Mr. Greg Mack of Exercise Professional Education, Physicians Fitness, and founder of the Muscle System Specialist Program. Greg, welcome. How are you today?
Hey, thanks, Brandon. Doing really good. Enjoying the end of the week here and really excited about chatting with you.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you too. I mean, I can't express enough that there's been a few people that have been super pivotal in my growth and career, and you have helped me so much think about things differently. You've really helped me dial in my intake process, and in my entire business, as I've said in the testimonial video on your website, I really owe a ton to you. So I'm super honored to have you and to be able to pick your brain and have all these people get to know you a bit better.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. Definitely glad to hear that. And that's the whole idea, is to try to take the experiences I've had and the way I've structured these things and show them to other folks so it helps them build their careers and that they can stay, working as an exercise professional. Because I think all too often people get in, they love it, they're passionate about it, they can't make enough money doing it, and they leave.
Yeah, which is a huge bummer. And I mean, I'd actually love to ask you about that. I had that planned for later, but I think that's a great kind of segue. Is right now, COVID-19 is this crazy time. And trainers are having a really, really hard time working in some cases because of mandates to be closed. And if not, if they're open, some people are having a hard time getting clients to come in because they're scared and they're nervous and they'd rather stay at home. Right now, a lot of trainers are pivoting to online just to make money and make ends meet. I mean, what are your thoughts on this, this great divide between in-person training, one-on-one services, and the online training world?
Well, it's clearly necessary in a sense if you want to stay working. I remember when I was working with IDEA, organizational people familiar with IDEA. It was originally called International Dance Exercise Association, and then they switched it to personal training as well as Group X and aerobic instructors. And I've been involved in them for a while. For about an 8-year stint, I was on their steering committee for personal training and was chairman of the committee for a while. And this was one of the things, and we're talking back in the 90s, right? Early 90s, mid 90s. And this was a big thing. They thought that online, internet-based personal training was just going to absolutely take over the industry. And it turned out it didn't happen. So, personal training is personal, and so much of exercise requires an expert to be actually with you in a 3-dimensional way to observe and cue and coach and help you figure out how to do these things properly and safely. Just very difficult on a 2-dimensional screen. It's very difficult with a limited view. I understand the need to do it. There are some ways, and there have been some successful coaches who do structure that. But to sustain that for a long period of time and to try to solve problems with movement and issues, pain and dysfunction, and on the internet via Zoom, it's very, if not impossible, it's very hard.
It's insane. It really is. I have a hard time getting my head around it. I do understand from like a business end how someone might go, hey, you know what? This is great for me. I can sit in front of a camera all day and I can train people and I can eat nachos when people aren't looking and I can do great. But the client's the one I think who really suffers. They think they're really the one that's not getting the most out of that experience. And you said something I think is powerful. And I know this is a big part of your model, and I think many others do. I think is great. If you're working with someone like you do at Physicians Fitness, clients who have pains, aches, problems, dysfunctions, and you're trying to solve some of these problems. I mean, if you don't mind me asking, do you mind speaking to a little bit about the model that you guys use at Physicians Fitness and how you do some of that problem solving one-on-one?
Yeah, so ours is very much a hands-on approach. We're practitioner scientists. We're looking at the process from a scientific perspective of making observations and collecting data, and qualitative as well as quantitative data, and trying to figure out if we can help this person overcome this through what we do, which is, help them use their muscle system better, which leads into their nervous system and their endocrine system and all kinds of things. But movement control and position control for any number of the joints in the body and directions are what we're trying to do. And so much of it is observational and hands-on that, again, trying to do it over Zoom, we're missing so much information that it makes it tough. I guess if I just was showing somebody some exercises with names, of those exercises, they do this push-up, do this sit-up, do this mountain climber, okay, and watch them kind of do it. They could do it, but because our approach is so granular and specific, and system oriented, looking at the interrelationships between the body parts and segments, we can't do it by Zoom. We haven't actually. We really haven't had any success doing it. Didn't even want to try. And we've been able to stay in business no problem. We haven't really lost any ground, because people perceive our customers perceive us totally differently than someone who's a personal trainer or a strength conditioning coach. And so that's an important distinction to make. We solve problems is what we do. We don't just give people names of exercises in some arbitrary order to do.
Which just makes perfect sense. And I think it's such a powerful niche. And I know I've heard you say this and many others, that as we get older, there are many, many more people who are struggling with joint pains, aches, problems, disease conditions. And I don't know if it's just me that thinks this, but I would say many people that are a little older than yourself and my grandparents' generation, there was a time where talking about physical activity and exercise was really reserved for bodybuilders. And talking about anything more than a walk or a run was insane. But in reality, as we know, the more you can strengthen the muscular system in specific positions and identify the differences from one side to the other, the better someone does. And I know that for you, this entire several decades of your entrepreneurship and education has led to this muscle system specialist program, which hands down, I mean, there's two ends to it. There's a sales communication end, and then there is the actual technical end. Just speaking to the technical aspect first, hands down is the most thorough, comprehensive biomechanical, biomotor configurationalism course I've ever taken to help solve some of these problems. Do you mind telling a little bit of the story of how all this data collection and assessment processes came to fruition and how it continues to evolve in your practice?
Yeah, that's probably, for my training, I probably had some, predispositions to thinking that way. I went into the U.S. Navy's, nuclear engineering school and graduated from there and worked in an engineering department in a fast attack submarine, operating the primary care plant and the propulsion systems and maintaining those and writing repair procedures for nuclear systems, and very, very, very technical, very detailed, very precise. We lived and worked in an environment where zero defect was the mandate, where you're not allowed to make mistakes. We did, and we made a few, and some of them were big. And those consequences of those errors are large, right? And so, from that foundation of reading gauges and pH levels and pressures and radiation levels, so that's how we operated the system. We started it up and we recorded what we saw every 15, 30 minutes to an hour, and tried to fix it when it was broken. And so I just took those ideas when I decided to get into exercise science and this particular field, and figured, okay, if I'm going to work with a human body system, why would I think about it any differently than a nuclear reactor propulsion system? It's a system. And so my approach is systems thinking, and that has a very specific connotation from a decision-making perspective, as well as a data collection perspective, and how you look at data points to try to come up with whether or not the plant's operating properly. And how do you know it's not operating properly? And what are you going to do when it's not operating properly? And so all the stuff I have done professionally and decided to put into coursework, because people were asking me, how'd you learn how to do this? Where'd you put all this together from? And I said, well, I just kind of created it um, as a platform for making observations, writing those observations down, and collecting the information and collating it and thinking about how it can help me make a critical decision. So, that's kind of the process. I've been working on it for 30 years.
It's amazing. And I think, unless someone takes the program, I don't think they'll understand the full weight. I mean, your background as a fast attack nuclear engineer, it shows because every manual, you have the 5 books you've created of the program, every page is so detailed, so thorough, every definition is spelled out, every process is explained. You've created so many examples, and it's brilliant the way that you've orchestrated it. And I love it because the idea of failing to prepare is preparing to fail. I mean, this program, you've created every possible redundancy you can possibly think of to help someone's body, yet things still pop up. People still have problems because, humans get in the way and random things pop up. And I mean, even relating that back to your submarine days, I remember a story, and I'm sure you don't have a Coles notes of it, but you talked about you guys did everything perfectly. You were prepared and dialed in. And there was this one time that there was a submarine that was on fire underwater. And I mean, it was a crazy scenario, but no matter what, you did everything you possibly could to prepare. You collected all the data, you were watching all the gauges, and still things go wrong. And that's what I love about this program, though, is that you have every step that when things change, you have the data recorded, the information to make the changes and go forward. And I just think it's brilliant. I think it's brilliant, Greg. I love it.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. Yeah. And the input I'm getting from folks who are doing it now, and there's more people have learned it and applied it. They're giving me input. It's designed to inform each other and let the community and peer review make it better, find out what's not working so good and what works better. Yeah, that's the whole idea, right? It's not a fixed protocol where you're literally forcing a process on somebody's body. Everybody's treated like an N1, totally unique, and we've got to treat it that way because protocols in the body rarely work, especially for what we're talking about, whole system function. And because it's a system, interdependent, interconnected, interacting, that means any action on the system has the potential to change the system anywhere else by definition. And so we have to be aware of that and figure out if we can detect, let alone observe and do anything about those changes that we see, right? I think sometimes the most important decision you make is that you're not going to do anything right now to try to change that. So the decision-making process is foundational, and that's informed by a very specific philosophical construct about what the body is and how it works, and what you mentioned is biomotor configurationalism. And so, yeah, I'm very much a fan of philosophy, and that philosophy drives methodology.
Now, on that very note, your philosophy and methodology has constantly personally had to evolve, and how it's evolved within your entrepreneurial practice, Physicians Fitness, it's evolved every decade and decade. I know that you sold supplements at one time and you were involved heavily into powerlifting, working in a therapy style clinic, and then at one point using haptic stimulation mixed with exercise, and then now coming kind of back full circle to exercise, but now doing more of the configurationalism, and you got all the Nautilus machines at your facility. Do you mind, both from the philosophical end talking about your mindset and methodology, do you mind speaking to that evolution over the last several years and how it's turned into what it's turned into now?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's definitely a long story, I think. Early on, coming out of engineering and working in that environment and not having a formal exercise science education and getting a lot of physiology, I spent a lot of my early continuing education, just trying to acquire that information, and always had the idea after attending a particular, conference on the emerging personal trainer roles in the community of working with the medical community. So, my whole career has been trying to work with the medical community in some way. And I was been fortunate to be able to do that. I worked for chiropractors early on, so I was exposed to the way they think about the body. I was exposed to pain specialists, psychologists. I worked in community hospitals with industrial medicine physicians and bariatric doctors, and worked in outpatient physical therapy clinics for several years, in addition to your traditional franchise gym setting, and had personal training studios. So all of that exposed me to different ways of thinking. And I remember for a little while there, I was thinking about the body as something that needs to be rubbed and stretched, which I now call the fabric paradigm, which has really overtaken much of rehabilitation and in the modern religious functionalism of exercise right now. Is you got to rub it, right? And I almost thought about going to massage school, and luckily I did not. I got exposed to some other ways of thinking, and just over time started to realize that really the system apparently is grown, constructed, engineered, if you want to use that word, to move about and hold its position in three-dimensional space. And it's the muscles that do that, and muscles contract at various levels. And so I started just to realize that we have to make the muscle system work better in terms of generating contraction, regulating contraction, recovering from contraction, and that contractions occur across a wide spectrum of modes, and that those need to be understood. And so I finally landed on this place where really the body's not made out of silly putty and Play-Doh and needs to be rubbed and rubber thumped and foam rolled. I think it's, people might enjoy the sensation of it, and that's fine. But when it comes to improving total system capabilities, it's getting the system to generate muscle tension and regulate it everywhere it can under all different conditions. And when that occurs, the person is very robust, can move vigorously, can respond appropriately, and they just feel better. When the system works like that, just humming along, you don't have sensations you don't like.
I love it. Honestly, I mean, as you know, and anyone who's listening to this, I share a very similar background as yourself, where, I explored some of that haptic stimulation stuff too, and I really thought about going to massage school and physiotherapy school to get better at using my hands. But through you, Charlie McMillan, and several other people, learning more just about how the body contracts and learns, and learning about motor learning, and learning more about post activation and all that stuff, I started finding, I know, like you have, I've learned some of it from you as well, is how if you stop trying to intervene and you just identify where the body needs to get better, and if it does something in a scenario where it can already contract a bit and it gets a little better, you can actually train it and prepare it. And the actual helping someone with a problem falls so much more in the exercise continuum than I ever thought before. And it makes it such an enjoyable experience, because it is, the best personal training that I've taken through the MSS course, that allowed us to really grow and help our community. Greg, one of the reasons why I admire you so much is you're kind of like, you're kind of a trident. You've kind of got three prongs. You have the educator side of you, where you've been a teacher and a leader in this industry for a long time. You're a proficient technician and communicator with your own practice, but you're also an entrepreneur and a leader within a smaller community. And I was wondering, on that same journey where you've had Physicians Fitness as a medical fitness paradigm facility, but throughout that journey, shifting your philosophy and methodology, how's it been steering that ship and communicating that to both team members as well as referral sources like docs?
Well, it's tough. Entrepreneurship is not for the faint-hearted. It's just not. I, Running a business in a free market system could be one of the most difficult things anyone could do. The failure rate is, what, I don't know, 70% or more by year 5 or something like that. It's not for everybody. Not everybody should be trying to run their own business. and that's fine. Stay in your lane, right? If you want to, control your world and practice the way you want without somebody telling you, well, then you should definitely make a run at, starting your own business and running it, but be prepared for some, serious problems. I mean, in a sense, operating a business is like just leapfrogging from one problem to the next. You're just in this progressive problem solving mode, all of the time. And there'll be periods of quiet and everything's going great, and then kaboom, right? I've experimented with a couple different models, where I had a company and we contracted to run the personal training facility of, again, a large franchise gym I did that for several years, and then I contracted to work with uh, chiropractors in their clinics, and that kind of led me to thinking, okay, maybe at my business and what I do is I deliver it in other people's facilities, and kind of an on-site deliverer, and I did that for many years. And there were real pros and cons to that model. The pros were I didn't have hardly any overhead. I didn't I didn't have to pay rent. I just contracted with people who were already had brick and mortar, and I just worked out of their facilities, and got direct referrals from their patient base in this case, right? And so that was very nice. I didn't have to do marketing, social media advertising, YouTube ads, and print media stuff. It just never really worked anyway. The downside to that is you're not in control of that environment. That is not your environment. That business closes, they don't manage it well, you're out. New owners come in, they don't like what you're doing, you're out. you know, I, and so I fought through that for many years and landed back on, private practice. I'm in a small private practice now, and I work the way I want to work. It's my facility. Do what I want to do in it. Structure it the way I want to structure it. Work with who I want to work with, and that's it. So that's the model I'm working on now, and it's great.
That's awesome. And it's funny. I don't know. It seems to me, and I'd love to know just your thoughts on this, that there are a ton of entrepreneurs who were engineers first, that they went to school for engineering, mechanical engineering, or some other form, and they jumped from that to entrepreneurship. Do you think it's because, I mean, engineers, in my opinion, their job, buttoning it down, is they're problem solvers, right? They really are, is they've developed a thought process in a very specific niche, and they fix things throughout the day, throughout their year. Do you think that's why there are so many engineers who've gone to entrepreneurship and business ownership?
Could be if that's the case. Yeah, I don't know what the numbers are, but yeah, I mean, you want to build a system and run it. See if it does. See if it does what you built it to do. and, it's an input output process, and we don't want to just look at the black box. We want to build the black box and figure out what's inside the black box, and put stuff in, process it, and see if it actually produces what we want to come out on the other end. So, and if it's not, you got to figure out why, and try to fix that. So that's definitely, the mindset of some. I mean, I should go into engineering. Really, it was my high school counselors and some of the teachers, who knew me, who kind of were, as I got into my junior and senior year, kind of saying, the tests are showing, Greg, all these aptitude things we're doing. They're saying your brain is kind of like an engineer's brain. You should start thinking about engineering. That's kind of how I even got started, in that.
Amazing. And so, on that note, I got to say that someone just commented in the live chat below, and they just said, halfway through Greg's online class, and I love it. It's a game changer. Let's go. So, on that note, the Muscle System Specialist program, I mean, there's two ends to it, right? And it is a game changer because you have this from the intake end, this amazing how you communicate with people call you, the sales process, and then the actual diagnostic process. Your sales process and the referencing of transactional analysis and Sandler's sales, I mean, it really, and the way you've interpreted it and deliver it, it's absolutely amazing. In your opinion, could you speak to how important having an ethical, clean sales process is, and at least having a system of how you do sales to make sure it's reproducible and there's some autonomy to it a bit?
You know, it doesn't matter how good you are technically if you don't have clients. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
be by yourself, training yourself. I guess you won't make any money doing that. You have to be able to interact with strangers. This is a personal business where you need humans to talk to and work with you. You know, you're not sitting in front of a computer screen writing code all day, and you don't need to talk to anybody. But here you got to talk to people, and 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 that requires a process, a systematic process. And so identifying the beginning, to the middle, to the end of how that should work and what we really want at the end, is determined by what we do in the beginning. And so that has to be laced together properly, or it just becomes chaotic. And I never even thought about really the sales part of it until I decided to get into the entrepreneurial side. When I realized, geez, I have to figure this out. I mean, I got to talk to these people. They call me on the phone, and they don't want to give me their money right off the bat. They don't recognize me as a superstar. They should just give me money. How does this work? And so I spent many years learning, systems and ways and processes and approaches about doing that, and just kind of weave some things together, and realize, look, here's where it starts. Here's what you got to do next. Don't get ahead of yourself. I mean, really no different than how I would start a steam generator, or a turbine. Like, this is the first thing we do. Just, once that's done, then we got to do this. And once that's up and running, we got to do this. And once we reach a certain temperature, then we can turn this on. And, that's how it worked. And then once we did all those steps, what do you know? The turbine is running, and it's turning the propellers, and it's making electricity just like we wanted. And if you short circuited any of those steps, the thing wouldn't do what you wanted, or you'd probably break it. So, yeah, same approach. And so with humans, though, it's a little different. Humans aren't, robotic machines. They've got emotions and different ways of thinking and feeling about things. And so you got to work through that, and figure out whether a simple yes or no at the end about whether the next step is something you want to take together or not is the key. And I hated some of the early sales experiences I had in training, when it was just all about, you must sell 100% of all humans all the time or you're a loser. And it was all push, 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 whether they need the product really or not. You got to get the sale. And that didn't seem ethical to me. So, I wanted to just make it more of a interviewing, decision-making process than me trying to get someone else to give me their money and do something that maybe they need or not.
Someone else has just commented below that the Muscle System Specialist program is the best investment I've ever made, beats my undergrad degree by miles. And I have to agree.
Well, that's exciting. I might have to raise my rates on that course. Right?
I think you should. Honestly,
$50,000 undergrad degree, right? So
you'll need a couple students. When I was 19 or 20, I went to college for marketing because I did all this personal training stuff for a few years, and I wanted to learn more about how to start a business. So I started this marketing program, and there was parts of it I loved. I loved presenting and talking about what I was doing, but the sales stuff that they were teaching was this really pushy, aggressive sales strategy stuff. I was in a small town, so it wasn't good. And I remember I left that program, went back to training, and I would get in front of people and do presentations, and I'd always get people excited. People always wanted to come in and talk to me. But my sales mentor that I had after college and the one I learned in college, it wasn't good. It wasn't quality, and I really felt like I was being aggressive. And it was after the sales process I learned through you that I really started seeing an increase in closing, because I had people come in to see me, but once I had this ethical sales process, I mean, I closed, but I had, in 6 weeks, 8 new clients sign up because I had people come in and I knew how to talk to them, set up the expectations, present my biomechanical muscle system stuff. And I didn't even have the assessment stuff dialed in, but I was already making more money after just your first weekend. So if anyone's watching this later, and Greg, you already know this because someone just said this, hands down, the Muscle System Specialist, will pay the greatest ROI of any technical course if you want to work one-on-one in the personal training world with someone who's struggling with pains and aches and dysfunction, and you want to be a bit of a problem solver, but be a personal trainer still. I mean, I do think it's undervalued, Greg. I've told people when I was selling my course, when I was teaching it here, that I would pay now 3 to 4 times what I paid then, because the dividends it is paid now, it's paid for itself over and over and over again. So I'm eternally grateful for your life work in this project.
I'm glad. Thank you. I appreciate that.
So, Greg, I got two more questions for you, and then we'll get you out of here so you can get back to your busy day. What are you excited about in the fitness world right now? Like, what are you fired up about? What are you excited about professionally, personally? What gets you jazzed right now?
Well, I'm excited that I'm seeing a lot of really strong programs coming out to help, prepare trainers for this medical fitness continuum. I think that's been, uh, tricky business politically. It's been tricky business from a legal perspective and a liability perspective. But I'm excited that finally, whether you like it or not, trainers, strength conditioning, exercise, whatever title you want to call yourself, helping someone, eat decently and use their body well, can solve a lot of problems. And you don't have to diagnose them, to say, oh, you have this disease, I'm going to fix it. Just the process of helping someone improve their motor quality of output and control, um, can really help people. And that's being recognized more and more and more. And you see, ACSM, ACE, right? And they're producing certifications, for this niche, medical exercise specialists and exercises medicine certification. So I'm excited to see that happening kind of finally. Now I'm not excited about the kind of philosophies and methodologies that I'm seeing being used. I don't think that has caught up to the idea that finally medicine is kind of recognized. Yeah, we're really good at some things. We're really terrible at this thing. And we don't really have time to do all the stuff that trainers do. So, okay, we'll give in and let them do it, right? And so I'm excited to see that happening. But trainers definitely need more coursework and content to help them if they want to work in that niche.
This is actually an impromptu question, then I got my last question. But do you think that there should be a differentiation between a medical personal trainer and then kind of the traditional hoorah personal trainer? Or do you think that it should lean
Probably,
one way
yeah.
more?
Probably. I don't know. I'm kind of libertarian in that regard. There's so many titles now. Corrective exercise specialist, medical exercise specialist, um, medical fitness trainer, strength conditioning specialist, certified advanced personal trainer. Some people don't want to be called a personal. It's crazy, right? And that's fine, I guess. I don't know if that problem is going to get solved at any time soon, and maybe it shouldn't. Maybe we need, kind of a multi-dimensional approach to it. But in whatever title you decide you want to fly by, if you want to incorporate processes to try to solve the problems in front of you in a different way other than just like cueing or rubbing it or putting a foam roller across it or something, then yeah, you need to think a little bit more about what's going on, because protocols have pervaded the industry in that regard, and the local symptom must mean local problem. Therefore, we must institute local solution. It dominant is the bias of the day on top of functionalism, right? And I think I'm hoping to see us, break out of that, sooner than later.
Couldn't agree more. And honestly, Greg, I know you're on the show today, but I think the Muscle System Specialist program really covers that from A to Z. So, Greg, if you don't mind kind of rounding out today, do you want to tell people where they can find you and where they can register for the MSS course and future courses that you're working on?
Sure, yeah, thanks. www.exerciseproed.com. Go there, and there's just a bunch of stuff there, maybe too much stuff. I don't know. There's free stuff you can download, our philosophy, a little summary of our philosophy and some of our methods and the definitions and the things that we're using to describe all of that. We have one-day courses available to introduce these ideas. We have an exercise explorers club. You can, $20 a month. You can see all kinds of information that we put out in this regard. And then, of course, we have the selling courses available online. I've cleaved that off from the main course. If someone just wants to learn the ethical selling part, they can do that on their own. That's totally online. And then we have the full, 108-hour MSS course as well. Next online cohort starts June 6th. No, June 21st. At 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, if you want to get in on that. But if not, keep an eye on the website. I'll put up the next start dates, because we like to do the course guided. Once a week, we meet for an hour just to review previous lessons, make sure everybody's moving in the right direction, and keep everybody on task. And that's really been working out well. We've put a bunch of students through that already, and so I'm real excited that worked out. I wasn't sure it was going to work. Eventually, live courses will be back. So keep an eye on that as well. So.
And for anyone who's listening, in case,
yeah, there's a YouTube channel too. Exercise Pro Ed YouTube channel. There's some stuff on there for you to watch. Max Muscle Minutes and Max Muscle Training Minutes, and some videos of colleagues talking about this kind of stuff.
So if you're watching this, Greg Mack is everywhere. He's got his Physicians Fitness page, Exercise Professional Education, the Muscle System Specialist group. I will say this from my own experience, is that once you take the program, Greg, you really have no secrets. You really share and do everything you possibly can to give everybody all the tools they need. And when you update something, you send the paperwork and you have a conversation about it. And I can't speak highly enough of you and the MSS program. So thanks so much for coming on today and chatting about all this. I really appreciate it a lot.
It's been my pleasure. Hopefully some folks listening got some good stuff for their own practice.
If you're on the fence, take the Muscle System Specialist course. Hopefully we'll have Greg again soon. And if you're watching this, next Friday, we're going to have Michelle Amore from Precision Human Performance on, which I'm super excited about. Yeah, it's going to be good. Awesome. Greg, thanks so much, man. We'll talk to you soon.